Sometimes justice doesn't come through the law, but from someone who's lost everything and has nothing left but their survival instinct. Deep in a forest ruled by fear, a woman trained to endure the unthinkable will be pushed to the edge, facing a network of corruption, abuse, and violence that controls every corner of the area. What started as a peaceful getaway with her husband quickly turns into a nightmare from which only one will emerge alive. So today we'll be watching the movie called Army of One. The story begins with a woman named Brenner, who goes on a road trip with her husband Dylan. They're hoping to enjoy a quiet escape, driving through rural areas, possibly looking for a break from their hectic daily routines. However, Brenner is not just any woman. She has elite training and a rigorous military background, while Dylan is a dedicated police officer. Along the way, a battered pickup truck suddenly passes them. From inside, the driver yells a crude comment at Brenner saying, "Hey baby, I love you." Besides being vulgar, the gesture is deeply disrespectful. The driver then speeds off recklessly. Though shaken by the incident, Brenner and Dylan choose to ignore it and move on, not letting it ruin their moment. Later, the couple stops at a small roadside diner to take a break. Brenner stays outside while Dylan goes to the restroom. Shortly after, the same man from the truck shows up again. His name is Butch, and he behaves with the same hostility. He starts bothering Brenner with invasive and inappropriate remarks. His attitude is threatening, invading her personal space. Dylan returns just in time to intervene and confront the man. The tension rises sharply, and it seems the conflict could turn physical. However, an older woman working at the diner steps in as a mediator. She reminds them that folks in town don't usually welcome visitors, especially happy couples. Kindly, she tells them to call her mom, like everyone else does, and says Butch will cover their bill. Dylan thanks her, but they both remain tense after the confrontation. After finishing their meal, they resume the trip and eventually stop in a wooded area to camp. They find a peaceful clearing and decide to spend the night there. The setting is tranquil, surrounded only by trees and the sounds of nature. Everything seems fine until a female police officer shows up. She approaches Brenner and engages her in a seemingly polite conversation, though it feels unsettling. She warns that locals don't usually welcome outsiders, especially those who decide to stay in the forest. She advises them to stay on the trail. They thank her, and she leaves. Wanting to continue enjoying their trip, Brenner and Dylan go on a hike. Upon reaching a fork in the trail, Dylan asks Brenner which way to go. She chooses the left, unaware that this choice will be a turning point. Soon after, heavy rain begins to fall. Seeking shelter, they venture deeper into the forest and find an old rundown cabin. Thinking it's better than being drenched, they go inside. The interior feels cozy, letting them relax for a while. The intimacy of the space allows them to share a tender moment, briefly forgetting the danger around them. Later, Brenner cautiously explores the place. In a back room, she discovers a hidden compartment filled with weapons and ammo. Her instincts tell her they're in danger. She calls Dylan, who steps outside to check the area. Alarmed by what they've found, they decide to leave immediately. But before they can escape, Butch ambushes them, striking them from behind. They later wake up tied up inside a filthy, dimly lit room. Dylan is badly injured and bleeding, while Butch tortures him with obvious cruelty. Brenner, helpless, is forced to witness her husband's suffering. During the ordeal, one of Butch's henchmen pulls him aside and reveals that Dylan is a police officer. The revelation completely changes Butch's demeanor. Clearly nervous, he returns pretending to be friendly and claims he didn't know Dylan was a cop. Suddenly, with no remorse, he shoots them both. Butch's men drag their bodies into the forest, dig a hole, and dump them in without hesitation. But the story takes a twist. Brenner is not dead. The bullets only grazed her, leaving her unconscious and wounded, but alive. Hours later, she wakes up dazed. Her first act is to check on Dylan, who, sadly, has died. Devastated, she covers his body with branches. Her grief quickly turns to rage. She blames herself for choosing the left path, thinking it led them to tragedy. But her military training kicks in. She remembers who she is: disciplined, precise, and dangerous. She decides it's time to fight back. She grabs an axe nearby and heads into the forest with one goal: eliminate everyone responsible. Meanwhile, in town, Butch and his gang act with complete impunity, abusing their power, especially toward women. It's clear they've been kidnapping women and committing heinous crimes, with no one daring to oppose them. Even the woman known as Mom, who greeted them at the diner, appears complicit. She orders Butch around with authority, telling him to eat quickly because she has more tasks for him. Meanwhile, deep in the woods, Brenner constructs a makeshift weapon from wood. She then ambushes one of Butch's men, silently kills him, and hides the body. Though affected by what she's done, she knows there's no turning back. It's her or them. She moves stealthily through the forest, eliminating another member of the group. Her strikes are fast and brutal. At one point, she slashes an enemy's leg but spares his life, letting him crawl away. Later, she locates Butch's cabin, the place where the horrors began, and destroys it completely with an explosion that lights up the forest. The blast draws the attention of Sheriff Hobbs, who hears the explosion and grabs his gun, alarmed. Butch and Mom also spot the smoke from afar. Butch reacts with concern, suspecting something serious has happened. "Go see what those two idiots are doing," the woman orders, visibly irritated. She, the one running this covert operation, demands he investigate. On his way into the woods, Butch finds one of his men dying, whispering that Brenner is still alive. He helps the man into the truck and they drive back to town together, unaware that Brenner has already infiltrated the vehicle, hidden, waiting for the right moment to strike. Once back at their base, Butch tells Mom what happened. She, furious over the situation and the death of several of her men, slaps him and blames him for everything. She orders him to clean up the mess. It's now clear that Mom is far more dangerous than she appears. She has a network of associates, including tech experts capable of pulling detailed info on anyone. She orders a background check on Brenner, unaware that the woman they tried to kill is already causing chaos from the inside. One of the techs complies, visibly puzzled and uneasy. While verifying the data, Mom discovers something shocking. Brenner is no ordinary woman. She has military training and professional combat experience. The magnitude of their mistake becomes obvious. They've targeted the wrong person. Meanwhile, Sheriff Hobbs continues patrolling the forest until he finds another of Butch's men dead. He immediately reports it to his team over the radio. Brenner, for her part, not only stays hidden but begins turning the area into an ambush zone. She sets traps and defensive mechanisms, preparing for a fight. Soon, the sheriff's team arrives at the location where the body was found. One of the men leans in and tells Sheriff Hobbs the man on the ground was part of Mom's crew. Then he drops a bombshell. Apparently, that whole section of the forest belongs to Mom. She controls everything that happens there. The townspeople don't just call her Mom as a nickname. She practically owns everything in the region and nothing happens without her approval. Curious and suspicious, the sheriff says he wants to meet Mom in person. Back at Mom's hideout, a young woman working at the control center tells her that Sheriff Hobbs is on his way to meet her. But there's a twist. The young woman is also working for Mom. She's just another person under her influence, feeding her information. The sheriff arrives with a few of his men and sits down with Mom. He brings up the body found in the forest, but she remains calm. She shows no concern about losing one of her men. In fact, she lies and claims the man took his own life. Hobbs doesn't believe her for a second, but chooses not to confront her directly. He nods, plays along, and eventually leaves without making a scene. That night, Mom and her so-called children gather to drink and mourn the loss of the man. The mood is somber. They're drunk and grieving, scattered across the place. Butch wakes up still groggy from the alcohol and walks into a room, only to find Brenner waiting for him. She hasn't come to talk. Without a word, she slits his throat and watches him bleed out slowly. Butch gasps for air. fighting to survive, but it's useless. Brenner stands still, her eyes cold as he dies. She did it for her husband. At dawn, Brenner remains hidden in the building. From her spot, she sees one of Mom's men dragging a young woman into a locked room. The sight shakes her deeply. She realizes the girl is not alone. There are others like her, trapped, terrified, and broken. Brenner knows she can't leave them behind. She sneaks into the building and manages to unlock the door to free them. However, not all of them are ready to run. Many, deeply traumatized, barely react. One girl panics and screams, alerting a nearby guard. He bursts in firing and one of the girls is fatally shot. Still, Brenner doesn't stop. She takes him down quickly and lethally. She escapes the building with one of the girls named Emily. Together, they flee into the woods. Meanwhile, word of Butch's death and the prisoner's escape reaches Mom. The news hits hard. She's furious and heartbroken, especially over her son's death. Driven mad by rage, she orders her men to find Brenner at any cost. Every available man, dog, and resource must be mobilized to track her down. One of her men locates Brenner but fails to get past the trap she set. He ends up dead like the others. Another man appears, and Brenner doesn't hesitate to shoot him. That night, Brenner and Emily rest beside a campfire. It's a rare moment of peace. Emily opens up and reveals she's pregnant. She's scared, not just for herself, but for her baby. She knows if Mom finds her, she likely won't survive. Brenner places a hand on her shoulder and assures her it'll be okay. "I'm with you," she says. The next morning, Mom sends her top enforcer, a burly man with tracking dogs, into the forest to hunt them down. They manage to capture Emily, but Brenner arrives just in time to confront the attackers. Simultaneously, Sheriff Hobbs shows up and is shot in the leg by one of Mom's armed men. Brenner reacts instantly, kills the attacker, and helps the sheriff to safety. The three of them regroup. Brenner tells the sheriff they can't stay in one place or they'll be hunted relentlessly. They abandon the hideout and follow a stream, hoping to find help. During their trek, they run into the female officer who had previously warned Brenner and Dylan. Believing she's still an ally, they get into her vehicle. Exhausted, Brenner and Emily fall asleep in the back seat. However, when they wake, they realize it was another trap. They're surrounded by Mom's men. The officer had been working for Mom all along. She betrayed them. Brenner and Emily are dragged out of the car. Desperate, Emily confesses she's pregnant with Butch's child, hoping it will spare her life. But Mom shows no compassion. She sends Emily to another room and prepares to torture Brenner. Later, Emily appears carrying a tray of food, but she hasn't come to serve lunch. In a brave move, she kills the guard and frees Brenner. Filled with fury and resolve, Brenner storms into the main hall where Mom's organization members are gathered. She confronts them using her full combat training, taking them down one by one. In the midst of the chaos, Mom grabs Emily and holds a knife to her throat, trying to force Brenner to surrender. At that moment, a man attacks Brenner from behind. During the struggle, Mom seizes the chance and slits Emily's throat before escaping. Brenner kills the attacker, but when she reaches Emily, it's already too late. The young woman has died. 3 months later, Mom is sitting in a peaceful garden, trying to move on with her life. She receives a cryptic message: Judgment Day. Before she can react, a bullet pierces her skull. Brenner had been watching her from the shadows, hidden, waiting for the right moment to fulfill her revenge. With her mission complete, she silently disappears into the forest. Her goal has been achieved. Thus, the story ends.